The plains stretched wide and unforgiving beneath a winter, sky the color of old steel. Wind rolled across the land in long, mournful breaths dragging dust and brittle, grass across the hard earth like whispers of things long buried. Out here, nothing hid from the truth, not a man, not a woman, not a secret. The frontier had a way of stripping people down to what they really were. Eliza Mercer pulled her coat tighter as she stood on the porch of her small homestead, watching the sun sink low behind the distant mesas. Christmas Eve. The word felt hollow. There were no lights, no laughter, no warm glow spilling from windows like there used to be back east. Just a single oil lamp inside and the creak of loose boards beneath her boots. She had buried her parents 2 winters ago, buried hope not long after. The ranch had been failing since the drought came. Water dried up, cattle thinned, neighbors vanished one by one, some heading east, others straight into the ground. Eliza stayed because someone had to, because leaving felt like another kind of death. She had told herself she didn't need anyone. Told herself loneliness was a choice, not a sentence. But as night crept in and the cold sharpened its teeth, even lies began to sound tired. That was when she heard the horse. At first, she thought it was the wind playing tricks, but then came the unmistakable rhythm of hooves, slow, heavy, deliberate. A rider who knew the land and respected it. Eliza's hand slipped instinctively toward the shotgun resting by the door. Out here, visitors after dark were rarely good news. The horse emerged from the haze like a ghost, breath steaming, muscles tight beneath a dust-coated hide. The man astride it sat tall but weary, shoulders broad beneath a weathered coat. He reined in a few yards from the porch, careful not to spook her. "Evening," he said. His voice was low, roughened by years of wind and loss. Eliza didn't lower the gun. "Ranchers don't usually wander this far south after sundown." "Didn't plan to," he replied. "Storm's coming in hard." Horse threw a shoe. Lightning flickered far off, like the land itself warning her. She studied him. The lines in his face weren't cruel ones. They were carved by grief, by responsibility, by a life that hadn't gone easy. His eyes, dark, steady, carried something heavier than suspicion. "Name's Caleb Holt," he said. "Widowed. Holt Ranch, North Ridge." The word "widowed" landed between them like a confession neither had asked for. Against her better judgment, Eliza lowered the shotgun. She offered him shelter because the storm would have killed him otherwise. She told herself that was the only reason. Inside, the cabin smelled of wood smoke and solitude. Caleb removed his hat, revealing hair touched with early gray. Silence stretched, thick. Uneasy, 2 people used to being alone, suddenly forced to share space. As the storm broke outside, so did something else. Caleb noticed the thinness of the shelves, the cracks in the walls, the way Eliza flinched at distant thunder, not from fear but memory. He didn't ask questions. Men who had buried wives learned when silence mattered more than words. But danger doesn't respect quiet. Not far from the cabin, other men watched the storm roll in with different intentions. The Mercer land sat on water rights worth killing for, and the men who wanted it weren't the kind to wait until morning. By the time Eliza realized Christmas wouldn't be quiet after all, it was already too late. A rifle cracked in the distance. Caleb was on his feet instantly, eyes sharp, hand moving for his revolver. Eliza felt her heart hammer, not with fear alone, but with the terrifying realization that this stranger might be the only thing standing between her and the end of everything she had left. Outside, shadows moved in the storm, and Christmas was about to be baptized in blood. The rifle shot echoed across the plains like a warning bell from hell itself. Eliza froze for half a heartbeat before instinct took over. She snatched the shotgun from beside the door as Caleb moved at the same moment, already pulling his revolver free. Outside, the storm howled louder now, wind tearing at the cabin as if trying to rip the truth from the walls. "That wasn't a hunter," Caleb said quietly. Eliza swallowed. No, they both knew what it meant. Men didn't fire warning shots in a storm unless they wanted. Someone scared or flushed out. Caleb stepped toward the window, careful not to silhouette himself. He peered through a narrow gap in the shutters. Lightning flashed, briefly illuminating the land. For an instant he saw movement. Horses, 3, maybe 4. Riders keeping low, using the storm for cover. "They're circling," he muttered. Professional enough to be patient. Eliza's chest tightened. They'd been coming for this land for months, offering to buy it cheap, then threatening. "I guess they're done asking." Caleb looked at her then, not with pity, but with understanding. He'd seen this before. Good land taken by bad men who knew the law rode slower than a bullet. "You got a cellar?" he asked. She nodded. "Under the floor." "Good. If it goes bad, that's where you go." No arguing. Her jaw set. "This is my home. And tonight," he said, loading his revolver, "it's a battlefield." Another shot rang out, closer this time. Wood splintered near the porch. Caleb fired back, the crack of his revolver sharp and final. A horse screamed outside, panicked, and thunder swallowed the sound whole. The attackers hadn't expected resistance. Not real resistance, but they adapted fast. Boots hit the porch. A man laughed low and ugly. "We know you're in there, Mercer," a voice called. "Ain't no one coming to save you." Eliza's hands shook as she aimed the shotgun. Fear tried to crawl up her spine, but something stronger held it down. Anger, resolve, and the strange, dangerous comfort of not being alone anymore. Caleb leaned close. "On my mark!" The door exploded inward. The world dissolved into smoke, sound, and fire. Eliza pulled the trigger, the recoil slamming into her shoulder as a man went down screaming. Caleb moved like he'd been born for chaos, calm, precise, every shot deliberate. But numbers mattered. One of the attackers slipped around the side of the cabin. Glass shattered. A bullet tore through the wall, inches from Eliza's head. "Cellar, now!" Caleb shouted. She hesitated just a second too long. A hand grabbed her arm, wrenching her backward. The attacker smelled of rain and whiskey, his grip iron hard. Eliza screamed and fought, driving her elbow back, but he was stronger. Then the grip vanished. Caleb stood over the fallen man, blood streaking his knuckles, eyes dark with something old and terrible. Not rage, memory. For a moment, Eliza saw it clearly. This wasn't just a rancher helping a stranger. This was a man who had lost everything once and refused to lose it again. Sirens of wind and gunfire faded as the remaining attackers retreated, melting back into the storm. They weren't done. Men like that never were. Silence returned, broken only by the rain and Eliza's ragged breathing. The cabin was wrecked. The night irreversibly changed. Eliza sat heavily on a chair, hands trembling. "They'll come back." Caleb nodded. "Yeah, next time they won't miss." She looked at him, really looked, at the scars beneath the calm, the grief he carried like a second shadow. "You could leave," she said. "This isn't your fight." He met her gaze. Something unspoken passed between them. Two broken lives standing at the edge of something dangerous. "I already buried one woman I cared about," Caleb said quietly. "I'm not walking away from another." Outside, dawn crept closer, pale and cold, and with it came choices that would cost more than either of them was ready to pay.